Senator Cassidy.
Thank you. Secretary Jewell, I'll begin with a statement. I am I cannot put enough hyperbole in front of this, opposed to the department's budget proposal to deprive the Gulf Coast states of the revenue promised under the Gulf of Mexico Security Act. Monies by our state constitution, when we receive, go to mitigate damage caused by federal mismanagement of our wetlands. Now, in Louisiana, we are experiencing unparalleled loss of land. This red area is what we are losing. Down here, this results from levying the lower Mississippi for the benefit of commerce for the rest of the country. Now, this has taken a once growing delta plain and has caused the greatest source of wetlands loss in the history of our country. We were told 10 years ago, bipartisan, that we could count on a portion of oil revenue to restore this coastline. Can I see the next slide, please? And what is at stake? This is a result of that coastal loss. Plaquemines Parish, where, I'll hold this up now, Plaquemines Parish, which has lost this much land, now can no longer protect itself with wetlands from that surge. In the upper corner is the FEMA director looking at the flooded area in St. Tammany Parish. This all is Plaquemines Parish. Those are working families working in industry that literally fuels the rest of our country, and they're relying upon this revenue to rebuild this land so that they can continue to live there. Now, over the last 3 years, I'm going to point out, the federal government has taken in $22.3 billion from leases in this area. And the 4 Gulf Coast states most affected by this have received $4 million, 0.2%. Now, frankly, I don't know how the administration has gotten at this goal. And I will point out that the Gulf Coast states and the offshore waters have, over the last few decades, produced billions of barrels of oil, trillions of cubic feet, but with that, there is a cost associated. And for us to support this infrastructure, we need to rebuild our coastline. Now, to speak of the infrastructure, ignores the individual family that just lost everything. Now, the Obama administration's goal to take this away reminds me of a quote from Joseph Heller. Mankind is resilient. The atrocities that horrified us a week ago become acceptable tomorrow. If way back when this was channeled, we had known that these homes would be destroyed because of that land loss, maybe we wouldn't have done it. But now it becomes acceptable to take that money away and to allow these families to continue to be adversely affected. By the way, it's not just an irate senator. Let me read a quote put out jointly from the Environmental Defense Fund, National Wildlife Federation, National Audubon Society, and the Lake Pontchartrain Basin Foundation. Quote, "They are disappointed by the budget's proposed diversion of critically needed and currently dedicated funding for coastal Louisiana and the Mississippi River Delta. This proposed budget undercuts the administration's previous commitments to restore critical economic infrastructure and ecosystems in the Mississippi River Delta, where we are losing 16 square miles of critical wetlands every year, a preventable coastal erosion crisis." These are the environmentalists. When I go back to Louisiana, in fact, there was a headline recently I read, "Does President Obama hate Louisiana?" If you're this person in that home, that's a question you're asking when the money we were going to use to build back that wetlands is being taken away. Now, in that is a question. Don't you care about these families? It doesn't appear that you do. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Senator. Of course, I care about those families, as I do about many families in coastal communities that are experiencing dramatic impact. The President's proposed budget says we should revisit the revenues from federal waters, offshore, beyond state waters, for the benefit of all American people.
Revisit means take it away from the coastline that will be rebuilt. Let me go back to the Heller quote. Mankind's resilient. An atrocity a week ago is acceptable now. This is an environmental atrocity, and now he's saying let's revisit. I can tell you, these families don't think he cares, and why should they? Maybe that should be my question. Why should these families think he cares about them?
Madam Chairman, may I respond? Sir, we are balancing the assets of all Americans, and they can be for the benefit of Americans that are greatly impacted. We do have billions of dollars going into Gulf Coast restoration, as you know, in large measure because of the very unfortunate oil spill.
That is an unrelated incident. That was Macondo, which also goes to Florida. That is unrelated from this 80-year process. Totally unrelated.
And if I may, sir, I've seen where Mr. GO, which stands for Mississippi River Gulf something or other, when it was closed by the Corps of Engineers, the beaches began to accrete. And I saw that when I was down there with the Chandeleur Islands and so on.
So that green, and this is Mr. GO, that is not at all adequate for that.
I understand that, sir. My point is that what has happened there has taken many years, and it has been the result largely of how we have channelized the Mississippi River, as you brought out in your comments. We certainly support Gulf Coast restoration. We're working on Gulf Coast restoration. This is a proposal by the administration for consideration about whether the revenues from the Outer Continental Shelf that are national assets should be focused on 4 states or should be broader applied, and certainly those.
We're over time, so let me just conclude by this. Thank you for your indulgence. I will point out that the last 3 years, all the states have received $22 billion, and the 4 Gulf Coast, $4 million. Now we're talking about $375 million out of $22 billion. Doesn't seem much to ask. Thank you. I yield back.